What was your first exposure to real estate?
So I spent a huge amount of my childhood in New York City on like stoops of townhouses. I always, for some reason, was obsessed with architecture, particularly in New York City. And I think I know I had this overwhelming ambition since I was very young. I would obsessively learn the data, who bought what properties, what was selling for what price per foot, who were the top players in the game, and just understanding the business.
Was there one big break, that opened the door?
When I moved to LA, I met this developer and he introduced me to probably the top broker in the world. I was really fortunate that I got to work for him. I got desensitized to seeing him like double end $50, $100 million deals, work with the wealthiest, most interesting people in the world. And I think that also gave me this unconscious confidence that I didn't even realize I was building.
What are some of the adversity that you had to deal with?
I went through like a lot of struggle growing up in terms of addiction and alcoholism. Like my friends had passed away. I had many horrific near-death experiences. And honestly, one of the hardest things to do as an entrepreneur, especially in the moments of just like nothingness, where you feel like there's no progression, to keep going.
It sounds like the early pain served up some purpose.
Most incredibly successful people and entrepreneurs look at the adversity as fuel. I used to look at it like, I'm going to get to this place and nothing and no one is going to stop me.
What are the skill sets upon reflection that you think are so necessary?
Each individual person has to find the way to constantly build the capacity of belief in their own ability. The only difference between the people doing what you want to do and yourself, in my opinion, is they have a higher capacity for belief in their own ability and they've honed their skills.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Jerome Dwight, and today's guest is redefining what it means to succeed in the most competitive industry in the world, the ultra-luxury real estate market. Carl Gambino is a luxury real estate founder and principal of the Gambino Group, a leading agency under Compass, operating across 6 ultra-competitive markets: New York, LA, Miami, New Jersey, Norfolk, and the Hamptons. With over $2 billion in lifetime sales, Carl has a reputation for discretion and concierge-level service, representing A-list Hollywood celebrities, including Mark Wahlberg, Jennifer Lopez, and Joe Jonas. Carl's rise wasn't linear. He started in modest, humble beginnings, grinding out hundreds of cold calls in New York, then moving to LA, doing dog walking as an early career, until a chance meeting the world's top luxury agent. From those early lessons in resilience and hustle, he went on to build one of the most recognized names and brands in high-end luxury real estate. So if you're serious about scaling your business, mastering your craft, and playing at the very highest level, this is an episode you don't want to miss. So let's do it. Carl Gambino, great to have you on the podcast. I've been looking forward to meeting you. You probably have one of the most exciting jobs. You get to roll with a lot of very cool celebrities, represent them on real estate. You've got a massive art collection. You are now the founder and principal of the Gambino Group. So in a nutshell, Carl, you've got a lot of balls in the air. Tell me a little bit about everything on your plate right now, how you're managing it, and what are you generally excited about within your portfolio?
Management and balance is very difficult, which I have figured out over time. Thank you for having me. Yes, one thing I often talk about is my job is so incredible in the sense that I get to work with and spend time with some of the most interesting, successful people in the world at the top of their craft in many variations of different fields, and that's awesome. And it's inspiring, and I've used that to study and build my own success in a way. In terms of management, I mean, my everyday business is real estate brokerage. We perform in multiple markets. Our biggest markets are New York City, LA, Miami, the Hamptons. We do New Jersey as well. And I collect art obsessively. I'm an art connoisseur. I didn't come from money. I always wanted to buy art. I feel like it makes life better, and that's mainly like an obsessive hobby when I'm not working. And this week actually was just the Armory in New York, which is awesome. And I'm so excited when art shows are in town.
Yeah. You you came up as one of the most successful real estate leaders in the space, and your brokerage firm is quite successful coast to coast. But I want to go back to your sort of early upbringing. You grew up in New Jersey. What was your first exposure to real estate? What got you kind of early excited about getting into that segment?
Well, just to clarify, I was born in New York City, but I
You're
did
born in
grow
New
up.
York City.
I
Okay.
did grow up in New Jersey. I've shared this a lot, but like my grandmothers are 90 years old. They live in Soho. My parents met on the stairs when they were 8. So I spent a huge amount of my childhood in New York City on like stoops of townhouses. I always, for some reason, was obsessed with architecture, particularly in New York City. I spent my weekends in the city and I would walk around. I remember with my grandparents, and they would point out townhouses and they would be like, oh, these are where wealthy people live. So I think at a very early age, I associated real estate with success.
Hmm.
I can't remember the exact age, but from a very young age, I was very into architecture. And
Mm.
even as I got older, I would have older friends drive me around New Jersey and look at mansions. And they'd be like,
Yeah.
we want to like have fun and go around. Like, why do you want to go look at mansions? Um, and I think I had, or I know I had this overwhelming ambition since I was very young. It was like almost an uncomfortability in my skin. My family was loving, super funny Italian family. But they all grew up basically like 7 people in an apartment in New York City, and the kind of mentality like, do you think money grows on trees? Like, you should get any job. Um, and I went through like a lot of struggle growing up in terms of addiction and alcoholism. I'm 18 years sober now. Many of my friends,
Congratulations.
thank you. Like my friends had passed away. I had like many horrific like near death experiences, and honestly, it's a miracle that I'm sober for
Yeah.
this long. So that's one thing I'm grateful for on a daily basis. So I think I was maybe a little bit of a late bloomer in terms of work because of my past struggles. I got my real estate license originally when I was 22 years old, when I started cleaning up my act in New York City. I did commercial a little bit, didn't really love it. I did some residential leasing, kind of went broke, and then, or I was already broke, moved to LA, and I was a dog walker, and I worked for a developer in LA, and I would basically do any job to make money, and I was making 12.50 an hour from the developer, and I thought walking dogs was an upgrade because I went to $15 an hour. And I got really into self-development books, manifestation, goal
Mm.
setting, and it's something I still do to this day. For the better
Yeah.
part of, let's say, 20 years, I've been reading them and practicing them.
That's great. What an inspiring journey. I want to unpack all of it. I feel like we're going to run out of time, so I'm going to dive right into it. Going back to those early days, you were like, here you are looking at expensive real estate, um, and you kind of feels like you got that bug early to, aspire to not only look at them, but actually own luxury real estate. So, and then you become a dog walker in as your next career. So I'm still trying to understand like how your progression was there one big break or one chance meeting where you said, that opened the door for something bigger and bigger?
Well, I think from a very young age, I wanted to build success in some capacity, and I knew that, and I didn't really know in what industry. I did know, like I said, from very early on, I loved architecture and real estate. I have a younger brother who's special ed, and I think I always thought in the back of my mind I would have to take care of him as well, and I've always aspired to make a lot of money. And then somehow, when I moved to LA, I met this developer, and he kept pushing me. His name is John Bershey, and he was like, "You should get your license. You'll do really well in LA real estate if you have a New York work ethic." He's like, "I'm telling you, I've watched every broker in the business." And he introduced me to like probably the top broker in the world named Kurt Rappaport. And I
Mhm.
was really fortunate that I got to work for him. He hired me. I was like starting to I got desensitized to seeing him like double end 50, $100 million deals, work
Mhm.
with the wealthiest, most interesting people in the world.
Mhm.
And then, as I said, I was very into manifestation, self-development, goal setting. I remember I would write down my goals when I was walking dogs and literally picking up dogs. And I'd be
Mhm.
like, I'm going to sell X amount of real estate, like hundreds of millions. I'm going to get on all the
Mhm.
top realtors lists. I'm going to be on the Hollywood Reporter or top realtors, like all the things I knew would be life-changing for that career or
Mhm.
for a real estate career. And at the time, it was almost like laughable as I was picking up dogs, but I just
Mhm.
progressively on a daily basis, what I call it now, it might sound cheesy, like going to the gym for your mind, where I have these
Mhm.
exercises that I now train salespeople and speak about when I publicly speak, where that I think it's similar to going to the gym for your mind, where if you wanted to get in excellent shape, you would exercise, feed your body good food, and you would do it habitually, and then it builds the capacity in your mind, and you constantly elevate and can reach higher and higher levels. And
Yeah.
I think also when I started surrounding myself with people who were more successful than me, I started to see that that's either how they consciously were always programmed and thought, or they
Mhm.
were similar to me where they learned that and then, went after it. I'm obviously an obsessive person, and what I would do, and I think this is important for any craft, especially sales, I would obsessively learn the data. Like I would read until the middle of the night, like who bought what properties, what was selling for what price per foot, who are the top players in the game, who was making the most money, like what, not just financially driven, just understanding the
Mhm.
business to where I would meet someone and I had no business and I was very new and they would look at me and I think they thought I was like a killer that they would trust with their asset because they're like, I really was an expert. And I think that also gave me this unconscious confidence that I didn't even realize I was building because I
Mhm.
was an expert, even though I had no experience.
Mhm.
And I guess I would say the second kind of few breaks or a few other breaks that I got were I started pitching my dog walking clients to let me sell them houses, and they'd be like, "You're a dog walker." And
Yeah.
this one big LA developer, I ended up gave me a shot for real, and I sold him a house for like 6 million something, which changed my life and helped me get out of tons of debt. And my wife and I, my now wife, we were dating then. We lived in a rent controlled apartment in West Hollywood. Like I remember literally like jumping up and down when when I was gonna make the sale because we were broke. And she was also a huge part in like a sounding board and always like helped me get through adversity.
Mhm.
And I think, or I know in sales, you have to have extremely thick skin. And my
Mhm.
past struggles, I think, helped me in the sense where
Mhm.
I could push through
Mhm.
adversity. And being an entrepreneur, still, like even to this
Right.
day, you have
Right.
incredibly high highs and extremely low lows. And
Yeah.
I've been screwed over. I've had the best days of my life in business. And the other few breaks I would say is I quickly realized in the LA real estate business that working with entertainment clients was obviously excellent and you could rapidly grow the business in that sense. And I was fortunate to meet a few entertainment people and I went out 7 days a week. Like I'm a very big believer in networking, and I would talk to anyone on the planet about what I was doing. Like I literally would have
Mhm.
talked to a parking meter about real estate. And I would do this in any business. It's even how I collect art now. Like I'll
Yeah.
talk to every gallerist, every artist on the planet and obsessively learn and expose what I'm doing in that sense, which is pretty much old school, but it
Yeah.
works. And then I was fortunate where a few celebrities started working with me. I sold their houses really quickly. I ended up building a niche in that world. And then what I would do would the way I do this, so we do multiple markets where I would fly back to New York because I still had a New York license and do deals with them in New York. And I
Mhm.
quickly realized a lot of our clients and that type of clientele would buy an LA house, a New York apartment, a Miami apartment, a Hamptons house.
Mhm.
So I then got licensed in all the markets, studied them. I started to acquire real estate myself. I bought and sold properties in those markets and honestly just became an expert in all of the markets that we work in.
I was blown away by some of the stats. Your agency has surpassed, or you have surpassed, over 2 billion in lifetime sales. It's incredible how listening to your journey sounds like the early pain served up some purpose, which then you turned into an asset for you, and then you broke into a very elite market. What I love about it is you became a student, like you studied, and I always find like knowledge is the great equalizer, right? If you don't come from a silver spoon, but you do the work, you study and know it better than everyone else, you can like outperform. I love hearing these stories. And now you're, kind of in the upper echelons of, representing, A-list celebrities. How important is it for you to still be close to the action, to keep your relationships going, your personal brand? Is it become challenging at times because this business is built around you? Like, how do you keep all that going?
I mean, that's a great question. Yeah, relationships are the most important thing to me in terms of who we hire and who we train as salespeople. We're only hiring people who we feel are an extension of us that can perform in the same way that we do. And yeah, it's something that I work towards on a daily basis, 7 days a week still. And maintaining my relationships is the most important thing to me, and servicing our clients in a way where they feel taken care of 100%. And what I've built is an advisory for our clients, in the sense where they can come to us and they're like, I want to sell my LA house or my New York apartment, or everything I was saying earlier. And funny enough, for LA, I have excellent team members in LA, like dear friends of mine on the team who have built incredible careers. And that's one of the most rewarding things, which I found that I've never even imagined it could evolve into, is me helping people on the team to grow their businesses, and helping salespeople and training them. And then I've often now started publicly speaking a bit, which also has evolved to be something that I could have never imagined, that was so fulfilling, and that it's even incredible. Like, people are inspired by my story. But yeah, the management aspect of it is to just, I honestly still work 7 days a week. I'm not saying that everyone should do that. I have 2 small children. I make sure I prioritize the times, like certain times of day with them, whenever I have to travel often. But I think the most important part of scaling and building is hiring excellent people, which isn't easy to find. Like, it's honestly, like, in the same sense where I'll write down, program my mind, constantly elevate it, and go towards and achieve my goals, is literally how I have to look at hiring. Like, I have to write it out and be like, I need this type of person for this. And I think the management, like, I've been so fortunate to have incredible people to help me run this business, that I could have never built it to the place that it is without these, people that work with me.
That's awesome. It always takes a tribe, and certainly the companies that have reached upper levels of success. So sales is the lifeblood of any business. None more so than real estate. I am an investor, and I run a high growth software company. We're always hiring salespeople, and we're always trying to find the formula, right? What's the skill set? What's the trait you're looking for? So I'm going to turn that question to you. Like, what are the things you're looking for when you meet new salespeople, and you're, making an assessment, can this person become my next rock star? Are they coachable? What are the things you're looking for in your hiring process?
Humility is one big thing. That's like how I run my business. In terms of likability is a huge thing, because like likability in selling is obviously important. Work ethic that's one thing I learned from my father. Like we didn't, like I said, I didn't come from money. He would give my mom $200 for 2 weeks at a time. He was a bank
Mm.
teller, but he would do that and then go paint houses on the weekend. Like
Right.
having a very strong work ethic is extremely important. Being able to absorb and you know learn data quickly, I think is important in a sales
Yes.
business. And there's just so many aspects, but I think those are the
Mhm.
main ones that I look for.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
taking care of the client. Like I find that I meet salespeople pretty often, and I can quickly identify if they're just in it for money or they actually understand relationships and are in it for the long term, and how one
Mhm.
relationship can lead to another to another. And we do deals for $1 million. We just sold something for 54 million. So we
Mhm.
do every level, and often other agents or people in my industry will be like, "Oh, you're working on like $1 million condo or things like that." And I've sold $1 million condos where that person has given me a $20 million client, and
Mhm.
I look at, maybe it's from my background, but I look at all sales as like a delightful reward in a sense.
Mm.
And
Mm.
that's
I
why
love
I
that quote.
function in that
Yeah.
capacity.
Yeah.
I read this
Yeah.
book one time too that said if you're a salesperson and you're selling nothing, you're probably dead.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I mean, sales is something you have to enjoy, and I love the quote. It should be a delightful reward. So, what's it like working with some of Hollywood's A-listers? Do they need special attention, or do you give them the same care that you give the $1 million condo seller, like, or buyer? How have you had to adjust your style, maybe, to some of the upper echelons of Hollywood?
I mean, I think the most important thing in working with entertainment people is privacy and discretion, and they're
Mhm.
constantly, on a daily basis, people are peering into their lives, and I have like dear friends that are celebrities, and it's actually really difficult. And that's one thing that I've adapted to from the very beginning is privacy and discretion. And I think that's the sole, obviously you have to be good at your job, but like one of the
Mhm.
sole most important factors. And everyone is trying to get something from them. So it's
Mhm.
actually providing an excellent service to them and just watching out for them, and that I think is very important because like I said, people are always trying to get things from them. And I think the other thing is they're normal people just with great talent like anyone else, but their talent has been exposed, and I think they want to be treated like normal people.
Let me shift to the real estate market, the luxury real estate market. There's cycles and everything. You're impacted by interest rates, tariffs, preferences. Are there shifts happening in real estate, and how are you looking forward? How important is it for you to continue to innovate, pivot, and adapt to, what's coming down the pipe?
I mean, I think especially in real estate, there's always cycles. It's very
Mhm.
cyclical. It's Fortunately for me, we work in many markets where if one's slower, we can have an uptick in another. I think still, even though, like, I think maintaining that self-development positive track in sales in any market, you can make a lot of money in sales. And I think, um, or I know if I continue to maintain that practice and do it on a daily basis, we never have a slowdown in business and we are able
Mhm.
to constantly adapt. I mean, sure, over time with technology and how clients, for instance, in real estate are often finding things on their own. I mean, there's still a different level of service in each capacity. Like for the ultra high end, a lot of
Mhm.
deals trade off market, and that's something you have
Yeah.
to know the inventory, know what's out there, know who's looking in the market. But I really do think if you're on your game from a mental standpoint and you're like set out to what you want and go after, like nothing and nobody's going to stop you, especially a market condition.
There have been a lot of technology players that have tried to use marketplaces to kind of cut the brokerage industry out of the buying and selling process. I'm not sure that that might necessarily work in a high touch environment like the luxury end, but do you see one day where technology could potentially, present a risk to your business model?
I mean, I think our job is unimaginably valuable. Like it's like inconceivable what we do on a daily basis when people are like,
Mm.
oh, they just open the door and no, it's like I can't even explain to you how many facets there are in the job, at least to do it on a high
Mm.
level.
Mm.
I think like anything else, like in the ultra high end, there will always be a niche marketplace where people want to deal, talk to, and be like have humans negotiate for them if
Mhm.
we're going
Yeah.
that way. But I don't know. I think it's a business. There's a reason why it's one of the oldest businesses, period. And I think human interaction in it is extremely important.
Mm.
And there has been a lot of these technology-based companies that have tried to cut out the broker consistently, and it's
Mhm.
continued to prevail, which no one knows. Look how fast things in technology and
Mhm.
innovation is changing, but I personally believe that the broker is invaluable.
Hmm. I think the real estate purchase, is so personal. It's the single largest transaction in generally most people's lifetime, and it's probably something that needs so much human touch, which clearly you're delivering on. In the last few moments here, we talk a lot about adversity and challenges. You shared a little bit about your personal challenges. If when you look back on your career, and you're still very young, you've still got a lot of miles ahead of you. What are some of the the top challenges and points of adversity that you had to deal with, where you were at a crossroads when you said, like, hey, I need to possibly check out here, but you didn't, and you pushed through? Do you have any that come to mind?
I mean, I have an unlimited amount.
Unlimited amount. That's what I
But
usually hear by entrepreneurs.
I think one thing that people don't realize is one of the hardest things to do as an entrepreneur, especially in sales or if you're building any sort of business, is in the moments of just like nothingness where you feel like there's no progression, to keep going and keep
Mm.
being able to see
Wow.
your vision through the clouds. Like I think that's like the definition of a brilliant entrepreneur. Like to be
Mm.
able, especially not just when there's the nothingness, but also through adversity, to be able to just see your vision. And like I said, like I used to look at it like I'm going to get to this place and nothing and no one is going to stop me. And sure, there were times where I wanted to quit. Like I had people constantly screw me over or go around me or buy houses around me that I showed them, and times where I
Mm.
like was in extreme debt and I thought I would be like not be able to pay bills, and I had no idea like how I was moving forward. And those are like there's been way worse scenarios than that, but I think that that is so important for an entrepreneur, especially a young entrepreneur. It's really easy, especially this day and age, for people to just give up. And I think most incredibly successful people and entrepreneurs, they look at the adversity as fuel to keep going. And at this point, that's how where I've gotten to, where of course I don't want anything to ever fall apart or deals or anything, but I can have like I just had a deal fall apart for 20 million bucks, and
Mhm.
someone else that was working with me like on the team, it's devastating. And I could look at it like of course that's terrible, but I'm going to use that as fuel to get 9 million other things going. And
Mm. Awesome.
I think that is like a very important level to get to, and it's hard to in the beginning to see through that, especially when you're broke.
Mm. Seeing through the nothingness, I love that. I'm going to remember that. In the last few moments, yeah, I want you to speak to the entrepreneurs who are watching this podcast. Um, what are the skill sets upon reflection that you think are so necessary to be an entrepreneur, uh, including to be a salesperson? Because most entrepreneurs have to also be salespeople, right? They kind of come as a package deal. what are the traits, the things that they need to work on today to execute on their dreams?
I think you need to, like, each individual person has to find the way to constantly build the capacity of belief in their own ability. And whatever that is, like mine is reading 9 million self-development books and my goals out loud and listening to podcasts and entrepreneurs who came from nothing, and that motivates me on a daily basis. But the only difference between the people doing what you want to do and yourself, in my opinion, is they have a higher capacity for belief in their own ability and they've honed their skills. I think that's the single most important thing is like mind building. And I always say about sales in general, and especially the real estate business, is it's more of a mind game than people imagine. And there's a speaker, Jim Rohn, that used to say, like, you should spend more time, and he spent more time working on himself than his job, and his job became huge. And for me, that's so important. And I think self-identification and like your being able to identify your own flaws and learning from mistakes is extremely important. Like, I have a real estate portfolio, for instance, where I've been buying and selling properties and acquiring properties for years now, and I've made so many mistakes in terms of management, just buying things quickly off a whim, like not analyzing things correctly. And I've suffered from some of those mistakes, but then I've learned, which has made me a better investor. And the same thing with sales. Or so I think self-analysis and being able to learn from your mistakes is so important.
That's incredible. That's a whole show in itself. Carl Gambino, thank you so much for spending the time with me. I know you're busy, you're traveling around, so I appreciate you taking the time to unpack some of your experiences. We're going to have you back. All the best in the future, and I know there's some big things coming down the pipe. So thank you very much for taking the time to spend with me. We appreciate it.
Thank you for reaching out.